Frown upside down. Good evening, Melrosians the world over. I'm Tom Catalini.
I'm Jen LeClaire.
I'm Sam Texting.
I love this show.
Thanks for bailing me out.
I was trying to bail you out. I'm Tom Shampoo.
And this is Let's Talk Melrose. Melrose, a show where Melrosians talk to Melrosians about Melrose, and Sam is texting somebody about this.
I'm sorry, Sam is busy. Sam is too busy for the show.
Sam is on a show and texting. She is popular. She got all kinds of stuff going on.
The kids call that multitasking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have found that as time goes on, I'm much better at one or less than one task at a time, ideally. Ideally, if it's less than one, I'm pretty solid.
Yeah.
You'll always come through. If you set the bar low, then the expectations will always be met.
I try to teach the kids that, set your goals low, don't have big aspirations, and you'll always meet them. No, it's just kidding. We knock it out of the park here. Who are we talking about? This is Melrose. This is the LTMM crew, and we are here to bring all the info to the people. We're going to have a great conversation tonight. We are abstracting. We're sort of like getting very meta tonight. We have a very special guest, and we're going to talk about community conversations in a meta sort of way by inviting somebody from another community on another topic. Yes, it's very exciting.
Look, we're diversifying outside the zip code. That is very exciting.
Yes. Expanding.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
So, Sam, what have you been up to since the last show?
Oh, well, Jen and I actually attended a few events around standing up for our Asian American Pacific Islander friends and neighbors. I'm going to put the link to the Women's Commission event, Women's Commission, Human Rights Commission. Shout out to the Little Pink Schoolhouse, Florence Lee, and our neighbors who put this event together on Sunday. One of the best quotes was from Suki, a fifth grade Hoover student. And she said, the best way to be an ally is to be their friend. So I'm going to put this link in here. And then Jen, do you want to talk about, that's why you're everybody's friend. Jen, do you want to talk about the Melrose Ed Foundation event while I post this?
I was only able to go to the last two, but the Melrose Ed Foundation, Jess Dugan and team put together a Dismantling Racism, I believe it was called, 3-part workshop series, 3 Mondays, and we just finished the last one on Monday, and it was really great because it was really interactive. They asked questions, there were presentations and videos, but the moderators also kind of asked really active questions and sent us into breakout rooms and really had us taking a look at some hard issues and having some I found I had some really vulnerable moments in those little breakout rooms, like had to really think about some of the ways the ally question was a good example. Like how do you reach out? How do you do things that are active and kind of don't feel performative? A lot of people talked about being nervous to reach out, being nervous to not be saying or doing the right thing. And someone in my group had said something about like, well, doing nothing is even riskier. And I kind of took that to heart. But so just really great conversations. The moderators were great. I apologize, I can't remember the name of the group. Humans in, what was the name of the group, Sam?
I'll find it.
Humans in Common, yes. I think. Okay. So anyway, shout out Melrose Ed Foundation. Thank you for bringing that to Melrose. It was really good, really well done.
And the majority of the attendees, there were at least like 35 folks in there each time, and the majority, by far, were women. So you'll get some Toms in there next time.
The women tend to be the communicators, I think, the learners and the communicators. I'm generalizing. I've realized that before you Toms yell at me, but.
No, I think you're right.
I was going to say, I
I have nothing to say. Jen, don't we have that on a t-shirt? Jen, I'm trying to agree with you.
If I was going to generalize, I would say, because guys think they know everything, but in Tom Shampoo's case, it's actually true. Like, how many conversations have you been? Well, no. How many conversations you've been in where you're like, I wonder, what makes a mammal a mammal? And Tom goes, well, there's 5.
Well, actually, yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
There are 5 things.
5 things that make a mammal a mammal.
I might only remember 4, but there are definitely 5.
Knowing that there are 5 things is leaps and bounds ahead of many of us.
Well, what do you know, Tom Shampoo? What are your theories? What are your theories about the City Hall sewer backup?
Yeah, why does sewers back up?
Let's go to Shampoo on this
What are the circumstances and conditions that need to arise?
I can tell you sewer backup at my house, usually what the case is. It often depended on the age of the kids. Like when they were 2, it was going to be plastic,
Excellent. Anyway, so that was
I do not want to even venture a guess as to what happened over at City Hall. Maybe it's the age of the system. I'll just leave it at that.
The building or the people system? Sorry.
Yeah, there we go.
My favorite joke. My favorite joke with this is Tom Catalini wanting to send a public records request for Paul Broder's lunch menu the last week.
I think the takeout orders are fair game here to investigate. Why was City Hall taken off?
Lots of to knock.
I was going with the age of the plumbing, but man, you're going to go right for it, huh?
Yeah, that was also
we're going there.
That was also an off-air conversation.
Not anymore.
I meant Tom Shampoo. Tom Shampoo.
That's right.
There we go.
Oh, it's all in good fun if we're just teasing. Anyway, let's get into the real news.
There we go.
Yes, there's real news in town.
Real news.
And I think Sam knows this one as well.
I just gave a not me sign very clearly. Tom.
Oh, yeah, sure. So Kate Lipper and Jason Lewis both voted to pass the state's new generation climate roadmap bill that came out. The whole state's moving forward. I think nationally, Massachusetts is looking to be a leader in the net zero effort. This is net zero by 2050. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into this. But generally, the state is on board. Everyone's on board to make sure this happens. And then local communities and municipalities can help do what they can to make sure that they move forward with their own version of what's called net zero by 2050. Melrose does have a climate action plan committee in place, and they are looking at drafting a plan for the city, for the mayor and others. COVID last year obviously put things off track a little bit. They couldn't meet, they couldn't do some of the work they wanted to do, but there is a plan being created. And so we are hoping to move forward with that. So that's the update on that. And cool. Thank you for our elected officials to help us move that forward.
And our own Eugenia Gibbons for advocating.
The people who do the work behind it. Yeah, exactly.
In layman's terms, Eugenia's wicked smart.
She's saving the world.
Give her a lot of credit.
One Melrose at a time.
Also wicked smart of the community who said to the MBTA, hey, all those cuts, we noticed you were making some cuts which didn't seem appropriate, and we're going to cause a lot of consternation and real pain. And by the way, we noticed you just got $1 billion.
Right.
Really, so just we're trying to help me out with the math here.
So what's up with that? That's what we all said.
What's that budget bulge in your wallet, MBTA?
So it seemed the MBTA was able to do some math and figure out, you know what? That's a good point. Actually, I think we can restore full service this was
to Cedar Park after all. It's great news for Melrose.
Yeah, this seemed to be a little bit of a game right from the get-go. And I went to some of the meetings, and it didn't make sense with the relief bill, and now it's here. And so I'm glad that that's not being cut, because if you cut it and restore it and interrupt it, it changes it usually not for the better. It needs to keep improving. I mean, the Orange Line train, we waited 20 years for the new cars to come, and then they can't even stay on the track. So the whole thing is...
Yeah. And some of the bus routes are, maybe not as heavily trafficked as they would like, but those are
they're critical.
Yeah, they're essential for people.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You know what else is essential? If you have a puppy, you have to give it a name, right, Sam?
Right, Tom. Other Tom.
Yes, they do. I'm going to be candid with this. I said, hey, let's put this in the news. It's cute. It's a puppy, and the kids. The request from Middlesex DA Marion Ryan is to help name her new puppy. If you haven't seen the news, it's in the papers, and she wants people to submit names. She wants the kids to submit names. And so I said, hey, Sam, let's put this in the news segment for tonight's show. And she said, why? It's a puppy. Who goes wrong with a puppy?
Who doesn't love you? Who doesn't love
her puppy happens to have the greatest name of all time, Teddy Pickles.
Teddy Pickles.
That's Sir Teddy.
But I think if you open it up to the public, it's going to be Puppy McPuppy Face, and that's just all there is to it.
Well, that's
what's that? Crime McGruff, whatever his name was there.
Oh,
McGruff, yeah.
Oh yeah, because she's the DA. I don't know. I feel like I was not prepared for this question. I feel like I need another week to think about like the puppy puns, and then I'll get back to you. I need a day. I need a day or two.
I'm going Puppy McPuppy Face.
All right, I'm gonna put it out there for the top fans. I want to see some names.
Let's help the people.
Not tonight, next week.
Yeah,
they're a little quiet tonight. I'm still waiting for some.
I know. Where's everybody
in there? So maybe they're, the weather's getting nice, and they might be outside frolicking. And soon, many of us will have the chance, perhaps, to do that downtown, right behind Rising Eagle. There looks like there's talk anyway of an outdoor dining patio coming, and it's city land.
Just right there.
City land that will be, I think they're talking at the city council about leasing it out, I think. So I don't exactly know if it's going to the people at Rising Eagle or if it'll be a city property that many places can share. I think it's just taking shape now, but I'm glad to see some movement afoot for kind of permanent outdoor space. I'd like to shut down the top block of Main Street and kind of have it pedestrian all the time, but this is at least a step towards some permanent hangout space.
Go back to the picture again for a second.
So Main Street's on top. And
I see. Yeah,
and then those two buildings. So you see the YMCA on the right. I mean, on the left rather, and then in the middle building is the Rising Eagle, and then on the right of that would be Starbucks and all that. So that's the parking behind there. That yellow square is where they're looking at.
Yeah, for fun, cool. Very cool. I will bring if it's Rising Eagle, and I'll bring my spoon and I'll be ready.
BYO spoon. That's the goal there. That's my plan.
That's great. I mean, maybe that helps them. I don't know if it's them or not, but it's I like it. Good.
Helps everybody.
It's taking shape. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think it's only can lead to good things. I think.
Creative use of that space, better use of that space.
And we have to add some art too. We need some sculpture back there too, Jen. So we'll get
something.
on that.
We need music and lights and all that.
Oh, come on.
I don't think you can
crying out for a mural.
I don't think that's all. There's other things we can do besides mural. We have to start thinking beyond the mural, Melrose. That's going to be my new anti-mural. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
No, I'm not anti-mural, but we think beyond the mural, Melrose. More than the mural.
I think we have to move on, guys. Look, I'm watching.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, all right. We have to get the breaking news out. MMTV Summer Camp is back. The studio is partnering with the Rec Department and Filmmakers Collaborative to host a summer program for students the last week of July and first week of August. Stay tuned for details, official announcements. I think they're looking for an intern. So this is great. It's a great program, and it's great to see it coming back in action. The Melrose Library recently celebrated 150 years since its founding, so we've got to get some library peeps in here and have a good deep dive discussion about that. They've got some cool digital stuff up on their website. There's talk somewhere deep in that capital plan. The mayor was showing us, a new library building and other future plans someday. But there's cool stuff happening at the library day in and day out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but we want to move this show right along to our special guests. So we went outside of the zip code to invite one of our friends from the north to come down to Melrose virtually. And I'm going to let Sam do the introductions while I
play the music
going, which is coming very soon.
Oh my gosh, I was putting my hands up so we wouldn't put you in twice. Hey, Colleen, I'm going to unmute you also. Colleen Guida is a school committee member in the town of Wakefield, which is just to our north. And we're Facebook friends. I'm a huge fan, and I've been following your story. You've made history very recently, and we thought, what a great time to talk about how cities and towns and communities have difficult conversations and still make difficult decisions. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So do you want to give us a little bit more about what actually did happen last week?
Mm-hmm.
So you want me to, I'll go back in time.
The overview, yeah.
Yeah. So last week the school committee voted to retire our mascot logo associated with any Native American imagery, sort of language, for the future as well. But it was a 3-part resolution for now. But this was something that's come up. I know that you are all familiar with this type of conversation in your own community. But something that's come up and then sort of, retreated back and come alive again. And, and this is sort of the same sort of pace that's happened in legislature as well. So this year, as we know, has been challenging and different and difficult. And I think these conversations and sort of the happenings of last summer have just sort of provoked the conversation again. But I feel like people were more vocal. We heard from more students and more community members, and we started hearing from them around August, which would make sense in timeline. And then after we heard from some community members, they had come into our Zoom meetings and really made, they had brought up the conversation, but also asked us to, and when we were going to address it. So, and we didn't really touch upon it for a while because we were busy, creating hybrid plans and remote plans to get students back to school in some form in September. So it was not to sort of push it over there, but really just a matter of immediacy. We needed to attend to those things. But in about October, our youth council, which is a new council in Wakefield, Sam, I think we talked about this the other day. I wasn't sure if Melrose had a similar youth council, in that they sort of fall under the town council. So they're appointed by application, and they're appointed by the town council and town administrator. So they're an official Wakefield town organization. And they presented to us after their own conversation in their meetings, and their meetings are public and posted and all the rest. And we, obviously listened, and were very impressed by our students, not only Wakefield Public School students, but I think the chair of the council goes to private school, but lives in Wakefield. But not only sort of, with their motivation to have that difficult conversation and bring it up in front of their peers, which their peers had sort of motivated them to have the discussion. I think that they were talking about it, from the summer. This conversation evolved from there. And we didn't address it right away. And then in January, it was asked to put on our agenda. And when we put it on the agenda, it was really just that we needed to answer the youth council or anyone that's presented in front of us. We needed to give some sort of answer to their presentation. It could be that we'll deal with this in the summer, or, this is our plan.
So can I interrupt you for a second? So that you talked about the teen council, or is that the name of it?
Youth council.
Youth council is an official part of government.
Yeah.
So they therefore have standing to put something on your agenda, or is that something anybody can do?
Well, anyone can, but
okay.
Obviously, when a group sits in front of you, that's recognized as a town committee or group, they present in a very structured manner, as the youth council did and always does. They're extremely professional and respectful in their meetings and their presentations. So
yeah. Side note, what a great experience for those kids.
Yeah.
Civic engagement. I love it.
Yeah. It's also been tough. They're young people. So I think that looking back on it now, this is still a very active conversation, but there was a lot of hurt and pain thrown their way that they weren't prepared for. And, you know, a lot of their parents had reached out to us. Teachers and educators in our town were extremely supportive of them, but they needed to sort of build a lot more than they were ready for. And I don't know if they didn't really understand, you know, like why the anger was associated, why it was directed to them, because they thought that they were doing sort of their civic duty, right? So, and they were, but it was difficult for them. And I think that as adults, we need to step in and support and advocate for the youth council. And as many groups that I, you know, can see that were important in that conversation did. It's also difficult, you know, to make public statements on Facebook as a school committee. We don't do that. And that's where a lot of the chatter was happening. So that was really hard for me. And I know my colleagues to not engage in that and defend the students and really say to people, hey, this is not, they didn't bring this up. This is a conversation our community has been having, you know? So, yeah, they are poised, intelligent, really amazing young people. And I can offline give you, you know, sort of, you can follow them on Instagram or Facebook, and they post their meetings. So if you ever wanted to join to see if something might be possible in Melrose.
Oh,
they're
awesome.
an amazing group.
That's cool.
So we talked about together about the process and the community process, for better and for worse. This wasn't a decision that the school committee just made, that you actually had kind of a plan in place for a deep conversation. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So after we decided to put it on the agenda, it was also decided that the Policy and Communication Subcommittee would sort of deal with it. And I happen to be the chair. This is where I come in. I happen to be the chair of that subcommittee. So it was in our lap to sort of deal with. And I had already attended a Massachusetts Association of School Committees meeting addressing this, because we knew it was coming because of the community engagement with this issue. And so I had attended that. Other colleagues were aware of it. That was sort of the foundation of how the process was laid out, because it was based on other districts that have already either gone through this process or were going through the process. So when we got to our first meeting on this issue during policy and communications, I had already had an idea of what may work, and it seemed like it was very consistent. You know, we all have a little, you know, nuances here and there, but it seemed like it followed, you know, a community forum, which was the first part of our process. And then we had a panel of tribal leaders discussion. That was sort of the second part of our process. And then after that, we distributed a survey to our students, grades 8 through 12. That was a discussion even in just deciding what students we should distribute this to out of their protection. And then after the survey was our meeting. It's where we got to circle back to the meeting. That was Tuesday. So we got the data. The district was able to compile the data for that. The district, we gave the authority to the district to create and distribute that survey, because we felt like they're in front of the students. So
what were you asking them in the survey? And I'm not sure if we covered the basics here. The basic was taking the graphic out of the logo, right? So it's Wakefield Warriors.
Yeah, you guys were the Wakefield Warriors. Yeah,
we're the Warriors. Yep.
And this was the response was essentially to remove the graphic,
the Native American imagery. Yeah, and there's sort of like, you know, right now, if you followed it, you'll see two images. You'll see a front-facing caricature, and you'll see a side-facing drawing. They both have a different entry into our history. And some of our community members feel like the side profile is more respectful of Indigenous people, but a lot of our community members, even ones who don't agree with the decision, can see that the front-facing caricature is, you know, not respectful. And, you know, they were like, okay, fine, we understand that, but we do feel like this image is respectful. But after, you know, going through the research that we did and listening to our panel of tribal leaders, it was really important for us to disassociate with any Native American imagery in a logo form.
The panel of tribal leaders is who?
And what did they say?
So the panel of tribal leaders was, I was on a call. Jason Lewis had connected us with two women, one being the coordinator. She's a sociologist at Springfield University, and she coordinates, these discussions are happening all the time. So she sort of become their coordinator, and we were on a call initially with them to see if this is something we wanted to do and how we would go about doing it. And then the panel was coordinated by this professor, and whoever can sort of attend and wants to attend at that point, we felt we wanted to include more than just one perspective. They all have very different stories, so I don't want to, they're not all the same, but their perspective may be, the same in one end, but we also had perspective sort of supporting the keeping of the logo as well. And, that was difficult because the panel is not comfortable with certain things, and we learned a lot. I have to send Sam still the link to the YouTube on that, but it is very powerful. There was things that were pointed out that were mistakes made by us, things that we should have been aware of, but we learned from them. It's a powerful, powerful video, and I'm happy to share it in whatever way that you can share it forward from there.
And what do you ask the students, grades 8 to 12? I think you said, are they voting one logo versus the other? Take it away. I mean, like, what is that?
Question
what do you
wasn't
ask them?
asked.
But what did you ask them?
Yeah, the question wasn't so defined as yes or no, because we have a ballot question, a non-binding referendum on our 427 election. That's a yes or no, and it's really important for us. It was important for us to communicate that this is more than a yes or no conversation. So the questions that were asked on the survey were more like, when you see our mascot logo, what things do you associate it with? And there was sort of a list of characteristics.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was more like that. Do you feel that the Native American or our mascot logo is offensive to Native Americans? Do you feel like it's a tradition? Some of the questions were like, yes, it is a tradition, right? Of course, So there were about 5 of them. We did try to do a little QC where we asked people, their emails, and then how they were connected to Wakefield, whether they be a current resident, student, former resident, alumni. It's important for us to understand, where these are coming in from. So
sure.
What do you think was the biggest lesson from allowing that process to unfold the way that it did? Like, what did you learn as a community by doing that?
The conversation got really difficult and challenging, and that's not bad. I think that it definitely divided some parts of our community. The really, maybe, I don't want to say extreme, but like on one end or the other that really weren't able to come together. So, I've heard that it's divided our community. It's a divisive conversation. Things like that. We could have made the decision and voted on it back in August or September, October. But I think that when you have the conversation in a community, then people learn. And I think that was our goal, no one could have predicted how angry it got and contentious it got. And
sorry.
No, go ahead, Jen.
But you provided you provided the forum though for that difficult conversation to happen. Because if you haven't done that, the conversation is still going to happen, and it still may be ugly, but it may be like on Facebook, like you described, and not everybody gets to participate, or they're not participating maybe as productively. So it's a difficult conversation, but you provided a forum for which it to happen, and in as safe a way and productive a way as possible, I would think.
Yeah, right. The forum was really in reaction to, sort of what I learned from the other districts, but also because the conversation online was so negative and so angry, and we wanted to provide a safe structure. I had the town moderator moderate it. No one does it better than Bill Carroll on Wakefield, so it was really like meant to be, you can come here, you can feel safe, and we're going to be respectful, because if we're not speaking. Because what's happening online is not what we want to sort of encourage, right? And we wanted to provide that space. Unfortunately, we didn't really get a balance of perspective, and we were hoping for that, because we wanted to feel like people felt like we're hearing from everybody here. So we didn't get that balance, but what we did get, and who we heard from, was very impactful, I think. The panel, though, I'll have to say, if people point to anything, it's the panel of tribal leaders and their perspective, because it is their imagery, right?
Yeah.
Right.
They are the people that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
So the people that wanted to preserve the imagery, what was some of the arguments or the feelings or the sentiments on that side of the equation? I'm just curious what people, what motivated folks on that side of the argument.
Most often we hear that, and this is true. Our logo is tradition. It's part of history. People in Wakefield really feel like we have this connection to our Native American history, and that is how we honor the Native American history. And if you, depending on who you're talking to, the Native American history is different for depending on what they've learned or what they know. And we have a family that we're still connected to in Wakefield, and we have members of the family who are still living in Wakefield, and their history and sort of how that logo came about is very important to Wakefieldians.
So how did it come about? Like when did that come about, and how was it?
It's sort of a long, it has
what's the short version? Give me the 20 second. Where you and I are, Colleen, we're in an elevator now. I'm getting off in a couple of floors. We've got our masks on, but really quickly, I need to know the origin story of the Wakefield logo.
We might have to ride up two times, but yeah, we have a Galvin Middle School is named after General John Galvin, and he and his friend Dick Baird. I'm sorry, not Dick Baird. Dick Baird is our Native American resident now. Leonard Baird, who's his father, they were good friends, and apparently John Galvin drew it may not look exactly like the side facing image that I was referring to, but something like that, like a sketch. They coined there was a phrase, I can send Sam the link to this too. We have the educators in Wakefield, and the media specialist put together a video and went through the history. So this was based on a friendship, right? How this sort of evolved. And it kind of came in and out of the history of Wakefield High School. Because if you see some yearbooks, it's there and then it comes out and then it's there again. And then there's 1 year that there's Native American imagery that looks like sort of like spaghetti Western imagery all throughout the yearbook. Yeah. And that was interesting.
What year are we talking about? Just very quickly, what year was this happening? Was it 20s, the 40s, the 60s?
No, the 40s originally.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it weaved in and out. And then in 1989 is when we first see that front-facing caricature, and it landed on like a football helmet on the side. And then really not sure how, and it just appeared, but
someone designed it for that year.
But it was 80,
the new football uniforms or whatever.
Yeah. Sure. It was 80 years of the other one, of the side-facing one. So 80.
There was some version.
It's a long time.
40 years. Yeah.
Jerseys, there's some version of a Native American warrior. Yeah.
So the decision came. I would love to talk a little bit about you as a school committee volunteer, spending your nights working for the community, the betterment of our schools, and what that what this conversation has done for you.
Why would you do it? That's my question.
But I think that there was a little bit of a response, as we talked about, from the community after the vote or during the vote. There's a ballot question now, a non-binding ballot question, and we were talking about how easy it is to have a ballot question on the ballot, and I think our Toms are super fascinated. But what is that going to do, and what do you think will happen with that ballot question if it's with where the conversation may go if it which direction it goes in.
Well, we have, people, we obviously have, we have some races in town council and school committee and I believe planning board. So there are, candidates campaigning right now, but this is also a campaign, the yes on no or no on, I'm not even going to say which one is which because I don't even know. But we have, two camps campaigning there. So the conversation is very active. There are people, they come out and hold signs just like our candidates hold their signs. So even after
what's the question?
Do you want to retire the logo?
That's already been
Mascot
retired.
logo, mascot/logo. It's a non-binding sort of. The only way it can be on be a question is the non-binding question. So we were split on the school committee, sort of in allowing that to be a part of our decision making. And it was like a close 4-3 vote that we ended up not allowing that to become part of our process. So going forward, it's non-binding. What the school committee still has the authority, or at least that's how we've gone through this. And so the school committee could, bring it to a motion again, for sure. And depending on the candidates that also succeed in our election, that's also a piece of it, right? Because they have to go one way or the other. Although I'll have to say that's been changing too. I think after our decision on Tuesday, there's been different conversations over there. So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it's evolving, and it's entirely a fragile situation still, even though you took this very big step in making a very difficult decision. And you've also decided not to run again in this election, maybe another election, but but what has this been like for you as a school committee member during your time on the board? Because I think when you first got elected, I was there with you on election night celebrating. Yeah. It seems like decades ago.
Yeah.
But what do you have any advice for anybody who might be running, or what this was like for you during this difficult time?
I think it's really relative, right? To when you're running. I mean, I could point to this and say, like, we had really long negotiations, and then we rolled right into pandemic, and then we had a mascot issue, so it's been busy for sure. But every day is overwhelming. And then when you look back on it, I do look back on it fondly, and I look back on it that I know that I've learned an intense amount in 3 short years. And I have never been on a negotiating team before. I was for 18 months. That turned into, more than we thought it was going to be. But I learned so much. And then pandemic, I mean, nothing is written on how you get through a pandemic and serve students. So that's been really eye-opening. I tell this to a lot of people. I think that we all have our moments of, kind of getting down with pandemic and, every day, right? But one of the things that sort of got me through is working with our district and my colleagues, because they're so forward thinking and always coming up with new plans. So you never have the time to like sit in the back and wah. It's like, what are we doing next? What are we doing?
Working. Yeah.
Yeah. And always with positivity, like always hopeful of.
Oh, that's like us.
So I'm like, all right, I may want to like poke my eyes out at the end of the night, but like, it feels good to be.
Colleen, how many people on the school committee?
There's 7.
Do you think it should be more or less or the same?
Oh, I think it's good. I think 7 is good.
This is the speed round. 7's
the
good.
lightning round.
That's smaller. Do you think people
true or false?
do you think people are in the community are better off if somebody comes in for a term and leaves, or sticks around for multiple terms?
It depends. People, we have that conversation about our superintendents, right? But we have a superintendent come in like a fire and like make all kinds of change and get things going, and then zoomed right out because he's like a fixer, So I wouldn't describe myself that way, but I think that when you're in public service, any amount that you give, as long as it's directed, and not
but well, like what's good, like for somebody to be on one of these
3
councils
years
for 20 years seems like it might, maybe that's a bit much. You know
right,
what
I
mean?
understand. Yeah, no, I think that you can see the sort of the wariness and sort of the lack of when you're on something, right, and you can feel yourself getting to that point.
Huh.
Like this show.
Yeah, oh my goodness, that's why she was brought in to kick me off the show. Maybe Tom, you haven't realized it yet, but it is time.
She's like, you gotta know when to hang it up.
I don't know. I tell you what, I'm hanging on to this forever. I don't know. Hey,
no term limits on LTMM.
when outside of pandemic times, when the superintendent comes to speak to the committee, where do they sit in the room?
Where we sit together. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I don't like that. This is the speed round.
Speed round of loaded questions.
I have a chance to engage with an elected official outside of our community to sort of think about our own, because somebody on our school committee might not respond as well to the speed round. But those are the things I wonder about if well, just because we're in Melrose, but those are the things I wonder about. Like when I watch these meetings from time to time, like, is 7 too many? Would it be better to have fewer people? But then if they were going to stick around for 12, 15, 20 years, maybe that's not so good. Like just what's the best way to organize it? We've done some things in Melrose. I think we have 7. I think it's the mayor plus 6, and then I think they alternate every 2 years. So we avoid the scenario of like everybody being new one particular year, which has actually happened sort of recently with our city council.
Yeah, ours is alternating as well. I didn't include the superintendent in my 7 number. There's 7 plus the superintendent, but he's not an actual member.
Correct. The superintendent. So here's my issue. That's my issue. That's my issue, Colleen. The superintendent reports to the school committee. So that's the way I think it should play out.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And with that, we got to wrap it up, guys.
We got to wrap it up. Colleen, it has been great to have you join us for the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And just to hear about try and be one layer abstracted and hear about the process. And it's just interesting, the whole how do you engage the community? There's probably no ideal way, but more engagement maybe is better than less. And clearly, it sounds like people want to participate or be felt to be heard in a number of different forums other than Facebook. We resolve a lot of things on Facebook in this community, so that seems to work for us.
We're going to stick with that.
Especially in our buy nothing groups. Yep, for sure.
That's what I meant, on buy nothing.
They're non-binding.
Buy nothing is the most binding. That's legal contract I know. If I leave it for you for porch pickup, it needs to be gone. It needs to be gone. And if I come to get it,
I don't want to see it again.
It's going to be mine.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Great. I definitely I'm going to see who's going to do this in Wakefield. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, so you've
on it.
I'm going to check with WCAT. We might have something like through WCAT that's not. I don't want to speak too soon because they're amazing.
Let's talk Melrose. Melrose is already taken. Sorry. So
right. But you've come to tell us how you did things. How you guys did that on the school committee. We'll come up and tell you guys how. We'll tell that youth council how to launch their own TV program. That'll be awesome.
Oh, I'm intimidated by the youth council.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not going near that gang.
They're impressive. Yeah. Thank you for having me so much.
Thanks for being here.
All
right, we'll see you around town. And when
I didn't tell her.
The last thing that we do on this show is we dance it off. So here we go. Yes. Get ready.
Yes, and I'm going to look for you. The next time I cross the border to Billy's Roast Beef, I'm going to look for you.
Because she'll be